Christian Kirk's days with the Jacksonville Jaguars have come to an end, and I'll tell you exactly what that means in the immediate future and just moving forward here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Exactly right. Your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you tap into that location each and every day. All right, busy day here. Let's get to it. At the end of the show, we'll talk about how nobody gets them all right. Got a lot of people in the base that they want to play gotcha a whole bunch with a lot of members of the media. This ain't me taking up for the media, but this is just me being fair and balanced. I take up for fans all the time, so today I'm going to add some balance to it and tell you why some of these things are fluid. Therefore, they can't be pointed out before they actually happen. In the middle of the show, the draft or sign a wide receiver help discussion has started. I think you can do both, but that's for a larger, broader discussion that we'll also have here on today's show. And what releasing Christian Kirk signals. After 3 years with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Christian Kirk is no longer a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise, was released yesterday. Apparently, there were rumors that they tried to restructure. He didn't want to restructure, so they let him go. He had a big number. He had a huge number. He had a huge number when he got here, and for the first year, he actually earned it. I say he earned it every year because the hazard of playing in the NFL is being injured and being hurt. So I'm not going to say he did not earn his money. Him getting injured is part of the reason why he actually did earn his money. Okay, that's what happens. But you have to ask whether the bark was worth the bite, or whether, to have that bite at the apple, did you get your value for the Jaguars? No, you didn't. And being durable is part of this business. That's why being bigger and more physical is usually something that people go after. But Christian Kirk is all class, I'll tell you that. So we have to preface all of this by saying that. Great guy. All class. Kind of at the end there, you kind of got Yannick Ngakoue a little bit. And what I mean by that is he was tweeting. And I don't know if he was tweeting at fans, media, or if he was tweeting at the team because he knew that they were in negotiations of calling his agent. But he was like, it was a little cryptic stuff. How soon you forget or whatever and all of that stuff. Look, the bottom line is it's a business and we all understand that. It was also a business when the Jaguars gave him a 4-year, $72 million deal that a lot of people around the league laughed at, right? It was a business then too. So let's just say we understand both sides of the situation. I didn't do anything yesterday on this, and the reason why is because I wanted to let all of that marinate, and everybody was going to give their take on it or whatever, but I'm right back to where I was about a week ago. So I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. But I did want to give it more thought than just doing a Christian Kirk is gone. And I kind of warned everybody, man, don't be falling in love with people like that. Names and familiarity mean absolutely nothing, even with the fact that most people read into when Liam Cohen greeted Christian Kirk and talked about Coach Whipple, who's now on the staff, that they know each other. And Coach Whipple had a relationship with Kirk before in Arizona. It means something, but it did not mean that they were going to keep him, especially at that number. It just didn't. Folks sitting there saying Trevor ain't going to let it happen. They're close. Yep, there you go. Now you see why being so absolute about little things is dangerous, because we think that every little thing that has a factor in making a broad decision, we actually sometimes make that bigger than what it really is and think that that is the only thing that's going to affect the decision. And it's not. There's some speculation also about Evan Ingram. And right away, people said that we need clarity on Evan Ingram. Why do you need clarity on Evan Ingram? You didn't even have clarity on Christian Kirk 24 hours ago. You don't need clarity If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, I really don't get this rush from people in the media or the fans to want to create the news before it actually even happens. Why does someone have to come out and tell you what they're going to do with Evan Ingram when they're probably still working through that process? Or if they haven't done anything, maybe it's because they never were going to do anything. Or, you know, we're starting to get to the point where this is the aggravating part. And it's not just about sports. I don't want y'all to think that I'm angry about doing a podcast, but some of the interactions, when we wonder why interactions go south, the interactions go south because we assume things that haven't even been presented as evidence yet. And the thing is what if they aren't even considering a move to get rid of Evan Ingram? And why do they have to answer for something that they're not even considering? Or if they are considering a move, trust me, the second it happens, y'all gonna be the first to know. It's just this need for people to think that everyone has to talk everything through out loud on social media in front of everybody, and that's not the way that this works. What releasing Christian Kirk means? Hell, I don't know. I don't know what it means. Does it mean they want Cooper Kupp or Chris Godwin, or I mentioned Devonte Adams. I said I called him, and people thought I meant you were gonna go kidnap him and force him to come here. Everybody had the answers. Well, he's following Aaron Rodgers. What if Aaron Rodgers ain't nobody to be following because he ain't going anywhere? How did that work out for him in the past? We just don't know until things happen. We don't know until things happen. And this will touch into why nobody gets them all right at the end. The best thing that we can do is try to present ideas to you. And one of the ideas that I presented weeks ago was that these guys are not emboldened to hold on to anybody that's already here unless it's just financially irresponsible to let them go. They're not attached to them. They're not. Your memories of Christian Kirk or what you thought he was going to be and how you thought he was going to lift this franchise, that's not their issue. Trent Baalke signed him. They didn't. When they took over this thing, they took over. It's like if you buy a business, you take over the profit and you take over the debt. You take over the whole thing, right? Now you got to start managing it. And now you have to say, how do we get to where we want to go? It can't be on the roadmap that somebody else was already on. And then okay, let's just figure it out from here. No, man. So sometimes we got to carve our own way and figure our own thing out and do it and make it ours. And it ain't going to be what we did somewhere else. It ain't going to be because I got a guy on staff that knew that guy. It's not always going to be like that. Now, sometimes it is. Sometimes familiarity, it does work in these guys' favor. But the only advice I'll try to give people is let them manage the familiarity. Don't you try to manage it for them and then end up being disappointed when things don't go the way that you want them to go and want to clarify everything as a mistake that's based on the logic that you thought something else should have been happening in the first place. I know a lot of y'all probably think that that's what we do or that's what I do. I promise you that's not what I do. I do try to present different perspectives and ideas of things that might happen and might occur. And when they do occur, when they do happen, cool. If they don't, fine, we move on to something else. But I don't think anyone like owes an explanation to me as why they haven't told us what they're going to do with Evan Ingram. Why does somebody have to tell me something that they might not even know yet, right? Right, we got it. What's going to happen moving forward? Let's talk about it. Do they draft or sign free agent help at wide receiver? We'll mention some names. We'll mention some possibilities. Keep your mind open now. Keep your mind completely open. We'll talk about it here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored, brought to you by Chewy. Man, I know y'all pets mean a whole bunch to you because mine did. My Lexi was my everything. And you probably heard of Chewy. They have everything you need to make your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. It's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Auto ship is a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, and essentials, so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel at any time. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, we're moving along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. I'm Tony Wiggins. What do the Jaguars do? Draft or sign wide receiver help? Yes. Did that answer it for you? Yes. Both. Draft and sign. Early on in this process, one of the guys I was looking at and I said, man, that'd be nice to have him was Darius Slayton. I think Darius Slayton's price now is going to skyrocket a little bit. He's 27 years old. He's fast, a little bit of a body catcher, but he doesn't drop the ball, so it works for him. 700 yards in 4 different seasons in 5 years with the Giants with a bad quarterback. I mentioned it, and there were some folks that I know that thought I was crazy. They said, we don't need him. We got Kirk, and we got this, and we're paying Gabe Davis too much money. And listen, the money that they're paying, and by the way, I don't know how they feel about Gabe Davis. I don't know anything about what they think about him as a football player. All right. It's possible, though, that they like him. It's possible that they don't. And they realize that moving on from him is not financially beneficial and counterintuitive. It's kind of counterintuitive to what they're doing. I have no idea what their plan is for him. But what I do know is right now they only got like 3 dudes that's caught balls before in this league. Of course, they have the great Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, and Parker Washington, who in a little bit of a limited capacity last year was able to make some things happen and make some plays, even in the kicking game, okay, on special teams. So he has value to them. But once again, it's an independent evaluation, right? They're not – they don't have the sentimental value or the sentimental ties to Parker Washington. At the very least, they need 2 more receivers. So, yeah, draft 1, sign 1, right? There's talk about Chris Godwin. There's talk about Cooper Kupp. Which one do I prefer? It depends what you're looking for. I think Kupp is obviously very, very – he can be very, very good in the slot. And I think Liam Cohen has experience with both of those guys, right? Him and Chris Godwin, obviously. Godwin is coming off of a lower leg injury that's not really considered – it wasn't really considered serious, like it wasn't a ligament or anything. I think it was a dislocated, maybe a fibula or a dislocated ankle or something like that. But there's nothing to indicate that people don't expect him to be the same Chris Godwin as he always has been. However, this is the second injury that he's had, right? His upside, people say, why is that different from Christian Kirk? Well, one, because he's better. He's bigger, and he's better, right? And nobody ever says that he drops balls. We saw Christian Kirk drop a bunch of passes. Cooper Kupp, there's familiarity, there's route running. I had a former NFL player tell me yesterday on the TL, he says, the thing about speed is, or the thing about routes don't go away. No matter how old you get, if you're going to route somebody up, you're basically going to route them up, right? And I agree with that. Brian Thomas Jr. is the speed. And you always want guys to be fast. You want your whole team to be fast. But more than speed, you want people that know how to find areas and know how to sit down and know how to make themselves available for the quarterback. Whether you mention those 2 players that I talked about or Devonte Adams, and I sit there and think about guys like that. Now, there have been a lot of people asking me about DK Metcalf, who is also a guy that has been given the freedom to search for a new team. If they decide to do that, that's fine. He's talented. To me, he's a dude that still wants to be a number 1. To me, when I look at what they're going to do here, I just consider them guys that love those route running fools. And I don't look at DK like that. I don't think he's a guy who doesn't run routes. I just believe DK Metcalf is your typical X receiver. And I don't mean typical in a bad way. But when I ask what else can he do, like the adjustments, I don't think he's that dude that's going to eat a route tree up and be consistent at doing that. And y'all can feel differently. I just don't think that that's for me, right? I would rather them get somebody who is more of a realistic person that'll actually make this team better based on concepts and based on what they want to do as a staff. And then I think if you want another fast guy, you go out in day 2 or day 3 in a wide receiver class that's pretty good, and maybe you get one of the cats from Iowa State, kid from Utah State, Jalen Rose is a really good player. There's a lot of young people, and you got to remember they found Kupp in LA. They found where James Gladstone was. They found Puka Nacua. And find may be the wrong word. I think they identified those guys and understood exactly what those dudes were. And they brought those guys in to do exactly what it was that they did well. And it's something that they needed. This goes back to the intangibly rich thing. It's the thing that you can't describe, right? But they know how it looks and they know what it is. I like the fact that they know what they want and they're going right to the store to try to get it. And sometimes it's on the clearance rack. Sometimes it's on the bargain rack. I don't think this is just, okay, just get a talented player and just try to make them fit what we do. I don't believe that's what this is. You look at Minnesota where Udinski was, and you think about Jordan Jefferson, Justin Jefferson and Addison, their receivers. Keenan McCardell had those dudes trained up to the point. Those dudes were sticking their foot in the ground, bro, and they knew exactly where they were supposed to be. They were running crisp routes. I don't see DK Metcalf as that type of player. So I do think they're going to get one of these veterans. I think they'll get a veteran receiver to balance that room out. There's a lot of people saying, no, we want to go young, just get another young, fast guy. Well, you just did that with Brian Thomas Jr. Sometimes you can't repeat that. And when you say you want a young, fast guy, you have to ask yourself, which young, fast guy has the intangibles that fit what the Jaguars want him to do? You got to be very, very specific. And if there's 2 of them, what if they miss out on them? So I think when you take the approach that they're going to get somebody who for the next 2 years will be productive, and there will be players that the Jaguars have that you want them to have for a career, but there will be other guys that they will bring in here for 2, 3 years, 2 years, maybe 3 at the max, but 2 years, that's all they're going to get from them. And that's fine. And it's not going to cost them a whole bunch of money. It's not going to screw up their future, but it is going to make them very, very productive and allow them to do the things that they want to do. And then because you draft well, or because you go out and find the person in the draft and identify the people in the draft that you want to be on this team for a long term, now when those guys start to phase out, that's around the same time you're paying Brian Thomas Jr. big money. And that's 2 or 3 years down the line. And now these guys that you keep adding to the team, the young guys, they're in the wide receiver room. They're acclimated and accustomed to what you're doing. But the only guy making huge, huge money is BTJ. So this is about fielding a team this year. If you want them to field a competitive team this year, you should want them to go out and get a veteran wide receiver that they're very familiar with. But then thinking about the future, you double back and you come back in the draft. I wouldn't even be opposed to it if they move back, got extra picks, and then they were able to grab somebody in the second round that I believe that they can be a pretty good player. Trevor can't have too many people blocking for him, and he can't have too many people catching for him, right? He can't. The best way to do that is with a mixture of young talent as well as older veterans. So we mentioned some of those free agency names. I want to get to some names in the draft, some guys that aren't those first early, the guy, it's not the Luther Burdens and the Ted McMillans of the world, but there are guys behind that. We'll do that and get to that here in the third segment on Locked On Jaguars. All right, here we go. I mentioned that there would be a lot of guys available in the NFL draft that the Jaguars could target day 2, day 3. Let's just look at some day 2 guys, right? I really want to focus on some day 2 guys because I do believe that there will be players that will be sort of left over, if you will. They will be left over from the first round, guys that, did not get picked early, who can really, really play. One of them is a kid from Texas. All right. And that is the golden kid from Texas. Now, he went to the combine and ran a sub 4.340 or right at 4.3. So I think he's going to be gone. He's ranked right now on PFF as the 27th player on their big board. He was ranked a little bit lower than that before the combine. Then he runs a 4.3 flat, 4.29 or whatever, and he catches everybody's attention. You're not going to get him. I don't think you're going to get Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, and of course, Ted McMillan will be gone, I think, in the top 10. Then it becomes, well, what type of guy do you like? What are you looking for? If you like Parker Washington in the slot, are you looking for a dude that can do a little bit of both, right? So after that first round group, the next group of guys are all bigger, more physical receivers, right? It's like the kid from Stanford, Alec Ayomaner, Jack Beck. They're both about 6'2", 210, 215. I really, really like Jack Beck. And Jack Beck, it ain't because he is a receiver that's other than black. But he is the type of guy that the Rams have liked traditionally. And you can even look at not only Cooper Kupp, not only Robinson that they've had out there, whether it be Allen Robinson or the other Robinson kid that they had out there, not just Puka Nacua, but they have had dudes that have had a similar body type, just like this. Van Jefferson is another guy who's 6'1", 6'2", that they've been able to use. But the thing is that they love those guys that love to run routes and love catch balls in the middle of the field and that can be where they're supposed to be. Jaden Higgins is another one. I really, really like Jaden Higgins. He's one of the guys from Iowa State. Jalen Noel, I really, really like, also from Iowa State. He's 5'11", 200. He is a pure nickel. He's about the same size as Parker Washington, but he got a little bit more hitch in his giddy up. He runs, catches everything. He's a dangerous, dangerous player, man. He's the kind of dude you don't want to see you going against every week. Xavier Restrepo is another slot, tough route runner. I think he's going to make a killing in the National Football League. Little Wes Welker type who always gets open and runs route and plays with a certain toughness. I mentioned Jalen Royals. One of my other favorite receivers, like if you don't go after the Ted McMillan type, is Savion Williams. And I think Savion will be there in round 3. People will look at him and say, oh, that's Laviska Shenault all over again. No, he's 6'5", 225 pounds, and he's faster than Laviska Shenault. But he did do a lot of the things. He was a big version of like Deebo Samuel. He did a whole bunch of things for TCU. In fact, him and Jack Beck runner. There's a couple of tandems, Jack Beck and Savion Williams and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars, with the way they think, they end up trying to get both of them, right? Isaiah Bond is another guy who didn't have the year that everybody expected when he left Alabama, but he is a sneaky good wide receiver. Even though he's small, he plays outside. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Jahan Dotson, and that might scare some people. Trey Harris is a 6'3", 210-pound dude who kind of plays like Brian Thomas Jr., but he's just probably not as good. And maybe out of all the other guys, maybe the other guy that I really, really like because of his ability to get in and out of his routes is Kyle Williams from Washington State, 6 feet, 186 pounds. Just reminds you of those dudes, man, that just know how to play. So kind of puts you in the mind a little bit of Trey Palmer, who plays down in Tampa, and Liam Cohen is very, very familiar with him also. So a lot of things to consider when you talk about the wide receiver position. But let me address this too real quick, because, a good friend of mine, we always have this discussion when he talks about media people. There are people in this business, dog, that will clickbait you to death. I get it. There are people here that they're always, it's like they're throwing that feed and like you mullet fishing and they just throw out stuff and see what comes back. I get it. Me and a lot of other people aren't like that. We try to do the best thing we can do. We do everyday content. And we try to make folks think about all of the possibilities so that you're not real disappointed. And there's a lot of people yesterday that are probably real disappointed. It's like for every person that says, gotcha, you said this or you said that, I wish I could point right back at you for when they told me that Christian Kirk wasn't going to be cut. I wish I could. But I'm not that type of person because I'm not a gotcha person. None of us knows what's going on unless you're actually in the building. None of us actually knows exactly what anyone is thinking. This is all about sharing ideas, sharing information. And I do a lot of information based on tendencies and things that have happened in the past. So trying to grab a hold of what James Gladstone's thought process with the Rams and try to figure that out for y'all, that's a big part of it. The one thing I know I have been right about is the need for alignment, the need for everyone to be on the same page that's in the building, right? The other thing I've always said is if I know what's going on in a building, then somebody's doing something wrong. In the past, I don't know where the leaks were, but there are a lot of people who giving out a lot of information, right? I know what my sources were, but even with my people, it was always, I know the difference between them giving me their opinion and then them sharing things with me. We don't need to be knowing what's going on because that means they have an operational security issue where they have to keep that inside. So understand that if your Jaguars ever miss out on a player because of leaks, then you should be angry at the person that gives you the leaks that you want and angry at the person that gave the leak to the ops that allowed them to get a player that the Jaguars wanted. So that's a place you don't ever really, really want to be as a fan. But what I will tell you is this: nobody gets it right, man. This ain't about gotcha. Nobody gets everything right. I know I peacock around and I say, hey, man, I said this, and people have actually accused me of saying a whole bunch of things. And then just when one of them happened, said, see, I told you. Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you that's exactly what I do, but I never do it from a sense of, but I didn't tell you something else wasn't possible because it's fluid. I could very well be right on something and then something happens and it changes it. And what you don't see is how that works when that clutch is hit. When those gears switch up, we don't talk about that. When they have to go to a contingency action, we don't talk about that. So I'll warn y'all again, don't be surprised if the Jaguars sign a free agent that plays a position that you don't think is a needy one. Don't be surprised if they keep players that you think they need to cut, and don't be surprised if they cut players that you think they need. They know what they want. We don't. If it doesn't work, we'll be right here on these podcasts and we'll be right online and we'll give them the business after we give them some grace. That's what we do. But the bottom line is we have to figure out what they're trying to do, why they're trying to do it, without having the benefit of actually knowing what it is they're going to do, because we shouldn't know that. And you shouldn't know either, because if you do, then that's a bigger problem. So shout out to everybody that's really, really trying to embrace the newness of the staff and the enthusiasm of everything that's going on. Shout out to everyone that's just enthusiastic, and some of this is just your enthusiasm overload. I get it, but people are really, really trying to work hard to bring you a lot of this good content each and every day. And it's not just here on Locked On Jaguars, it's everywhere. But I just want the reality. Some people like me, some people don't, and that's fine. But I want the reality of the situation to be out front in what it is. We should not know anything about what's going on. We just shouldn't be surprised about anything that's going on. And the goal in all of this is this: when things happen, that's when you go, oh, I wonder how they came up with that decision. And then that's when the fun starts, because you go through it together. And now you start to develop a sense of understanding how they're going to move, whether or not they're going to be predictable, what type of players they want, what's important, what they lead with, all of this stuff. We're just building a folder here. And that's what we like to do here on Locked On Jaguars. So y'all hang in there, man, and don't make the offseason so hard for yourselves. Everybody just woosah, relax. And like I said the other day, just vibe, man. Just vibe. So Christian Kirk is gone. What's next for the Jaguars? Well, I don't know, but we'll see. And I'll have it for you right here each and every day on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL if you want to stay abreast with all the things going around the entire National Football League. It's twice a day. Tyler rolling the madman early in the morning like a double shot of espresso, and slide through in the afternoon at about 2 o'clock with the barbershop. We'll give it to you like you can't get anywhere else, because we'll use the help of local experts as well as clips from the local experts from around the National Football League, so you can keep your pulse on all things NFL. All right, man, y'all take care of each other. Have a very, very nice day. It's a beautiful day here in North Florida. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.